We have rolled into 2026. Welcome. I'm Meredith McCarthy. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist based in Wellington, New Zealand. I love to talk about things to do with the mind, things to do with hypnosis, and helping people out there to understand more about how their mind works, how suggestible we are, and how we can utilize those suggestions in powerful, positive ways. So for this talk time today, I thought we'd talk about critical thinking. How important that is to be able to discern what's just a thought and what's fact. So buckle up. I hope you enjoy today's one. Let's start with how the mind can jump to conclusions. Often we are daydreaming about something. Maybe it's a situation you're going through and you're thinking in your mind, oh, I'm sure he thinks I'm this, that, and the other. And you start to have this conversation. Now, you don't know for sure how that person is thinking about you, but your mind is playing tricks. It's perceiving maybe little subtle signals and then through your filter of reality, starting to conjure up the meaning to those signals. Now, those signals may not be accurate unless the person is telling you for sure how they think about you or what they're actually thinking. It's all guesswork. However, that doesn't mean that we think about that a lot. Quite often we do get caught up in our own worry, our own overthinking about something or someone and how we're placed in that situation. It is important to come into stillness. This is something that I was talking the other day actually to a colleague about, is the Esdale. Anyway, if you don't know who he is, I'm going to talk on that in an episode coming up, but there is this understanding of dropping deep into stillness and how profoundly healing that is. And quite often in our chatter, we're not really very still. So quite often we need to just step back from the internal chatter that's happening all the time, come into stillness and let our body and brain process things. Having that critical element is really important as part of our development as human beings. We need to be able to step back out of the emotion of something and look at it with curiosity. Okay, I often talk about curiosity during these talk times, and I really mean it. It's important to be curious, but through potentially an open-minded lens rather than thinking it's going to be negative or positive. Let's just, I guess, take a step back, come into stillness, and just check in. How am I feeling? Can I sense my space, my place in this moment in time, and just clear your lens, clear your emotional lens before looking again. Why I say this is because sometimes when we're charged in an emotion, that emotion tints how we are going to see that situation. So if it's been making us angry or upset, we're going to continue to look at that through an angry, upset lens. And that's going to escalate or exaggerate that negative perception or perspective. If we want to step back and use our critical mind, what's fact? What can I prove to be true? This is important that we're coming in there with a clean emotional lens, okay? One that is curious and open, and we're more likely to see then the truth of something rather than the first reaction of emotion about something. I'm not saying not to ignore your intuition, okay? So sometimes we have a very clear gut feeling about something. Trust that. Yeah, got it. However, sometimes we just get whirling in our own worry about how people might perceive us or how we fit in the world or something like that. That self-esteem issue can start to bubble up and we overthink things. Okay, so if you come into that category of an overthinker, have a think, come into stillness. Take a deep breath. Feel the breath moving in and out. Feel your body sitting, standing if you are. and just be present, come home. Feel the breath again. No need to change it, just notice it. Clear the mind filter. And once you've done that, then look again. Look into that situation from a calm, clear space, one of curiosity. Maybe it is fact that something upsetting is going on. A relationship that you've had for years maybe isn't going so well, or a situation at work, and there really are problems with communication and it is causing you stress or anguish or anger or whatever it is that you might be experiencing on a day-to-day basis. It's not to ignore it, but it's then looking at that lens of curiosity. What do I want to learn from this? What could it be teaching me that could make me more strong, wiser, clearer about what I do next? What are my options? What feels right to me? So it's not quickly acting upon something based off the first reaction. It's just coming into stillness first, clearing the emotional lens, and then looking at it more critically, using that critical mind, discerning what am I assuming right now, perhaps, of that situation? Or it could be, what am I actually knowing for certain about that situation? If the thought wasn't true, what else could be possible that's going on right now? So using that critical lens, I think, is an important part of our development around understanding that we don't always need to go for the first response we have. Okay, so we are emotional beings. We're meant to be. That's how we're wired. However, sometimes the emotion can taint or tint the way we then turn up next. And if we don't want to feel out of control all the time, or we want to gain wisdom through the journey that we're moving through, exercising that critical mind or critical thinking is important. I was talking the other day to my colleague also. We had a good long lunch, one of those ones that last for hours and hours and you just keep talking about all sorts of great things. And we were talking about, I guess, the lens of news and how the algorithms out there sort of feed people the tunnel of information, and it's sort of, again, angled from one perspective. And that's what the algorithms do these days. And it is important sometimes, if we want to know what the truth is, to listen to people actually saying what they've said. So if it's a politician, go actually listen to the whole speech. Don't just listen to the filters of news that come afterwards that have maybe an agenda attached to them. Use your critical mind. Is that true? Did he actually or she say that for sure? Is that really what they meant? So taking time to do your own research rather than assuming that the feed of news that you get all the time is accurate, because quite often it isn't. Propaganda is everywhere. And I think it's really important in this day and age to be discerning about how you get your information and exercising that critical mind. Not being criticizing of something, that's not what we mean by critical mind. It's really being aware of what's true and what's not. Like Chinese whispers, okay? So if you imagine someone watches a speech and then they write about it. Now, that is a filter that they are writing through. So they've got their own angle, their own take on it. Then you read it. And then you share that with a friend. Hey, I was reading an article the other day and it said, da, 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 da. Okay. Now, you might not be accurate to what the article said either. So it starts to warp into something else. And then that friend then says something to their friend. Hey, my friend the other day was reading this article from this thing, and it said this, this, and this. Now, 10 friends in, suddenly you might have a very different take on what the first news actually was. Chinese whispers, right? So I think it's important that we stop for a moment and exercise coming back to the source. How do I know that to be true? Is the source of my information that I'm getting about things in my life coming from the person that created that reality? Or has it been filtered through a few lenses? Okay. This is really important at these times, that we are using this critical mind, this critical faculty, and thinking, how do I know it to be true? Let's do a little bit more digging here. Coming into stillness first. So when you do look in, that you don't have your emotional filter on, that you have your fact-finding filter. Okay? So anyway, I thought I'd talk about that today, because many times when people come in to a session, they are going through their own personal torment about what's going on and how they're relating to other people in the world around them, and they've got all this sort of stuff going on. It's a lot of noise, and it's important that I support that client into discerning what is true and what is not. And quite often I will question, how do you know that to be true? How do you find that out? And what if that wasn't true? Then what? What if it meant something completely different? This is important, that difference between just getting stuck in your own head and your own beliefs, or taking it to a therapist and teasing it out, looking at what's true and what's not. Because a lot of phobias, a lot of fears, a lot of anguish that people feel in their day-to-day living comes from constructs that they've created through their mind filter of reality. And often it's not really that real. It's mind-made. So we don't want to be fighting this mind-made kind of scenario all the time if it's not even true. So it's really important that we're taking moments to come into stillness, to clear our minds of whatever mood we might have been in, and then look again through a cleaner lens. I hope today's been useful or interesting to you. I'm going to be talking to my colleague Teresa Saunders next time. We're going to be talking about journaling and how actually there are some really exciting studies done around a specific style of journaling. So we're going to talk about that in the next talk time. So I hope you can join us then in another week. Anyway, for now, if you are interested in training to become a clinical hypnotherapist, check out the nzach.ac.nz site, and there's all the information about the diploma course. So get in touch if you're curious about that. I'd love to be your guide. And for now though, I hope you're enjoying the beginning of a brand new year with lots of things about to happen. So buckle up for that, I guess. Anyway, ka kite, bye.